Certainly good to be back with you once again to deliver another lesson from God's Word. Welcome all of our visitors. Certainly good to have an encouragement to have you here with us, and we welcome you back at any time. This morning, I thought we would kind of do more of an expository type sermon, and I came across a debate on, I don't know if it was a debate or just people commenting on Judges chapter 11 here with Jephthah's vow on the different perspectives out there. And so I thought it would be a good idea to maybe review the two different perspectives when it comes to Jephthah's vow and see what we can come up with as far as these two different viewpoints. So this morning, this lesson, and we may have to come back later on tonight. I think I might have got too much material in here for one lesson, so it'll probably end up being two. We'll probably curtail it here about midpoint this morning, and then come back and finish it up this evening. But as far as what we're going to look at in this lesson, we're going to see who was Jephthah. We'll examine the account of Jephthah's vow, and then we'll see what happened to Jephthah. We'll try to determine what happened to Jephthah's daughter, and then we'll look to see if there's any applications that we can take away from this account. So now let's begin by looking at who was Jephthah. Exactly who is this individual Jephthah? If we open up our Bibles to Judges chapter 11. Really, the entire chapter is dedicated to the account of Jephthah. I'm in the wrong spot. That's what happens when you have more than one marker in the Bible. You pull the wrong one. Beginning there in verse 1, it says, "Now Jephthah was a Gileadite, was a mighty man of valor, but he was the son of a harlot, and of Gilead begat Jephthah. Gilead's wife bore sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, You shall have no inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and dwelt in the land of Tob, and the worthless men banded together with Jephthah and went out raiding with him. It came to pass after a time that the people of Ammon made war against Israel. And so it was, when the people of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. Then they said to Jephthah, Come and be our commander, and we may fight against the people of Ammon. Then Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, Do you not hate me and expel me from my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, That is why we have turned again to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the people of Ammon, and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. Then Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, If you will take me back home to fight against the people of Ammon, and the Lord delivers them to me, shall I be your head? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, The Lord will be a witness between us, if we do not do according to your words. Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the men of Mizpah. Now Jephthah sent messengers to the king and the people of Ammon, saying, What do you have against me, that you have come to fight against me and my land? And the king of the people of Ammon answered to the messengers of Jephthah, Because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt from the Arnon and from Jabbok and from the Jordan and to the Jordan, now therefore restore the lands peacefully. So Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the people of Ammon, and said to him, Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the lands of Moab, nor the land of the people of Ammon. For when Israel came up from Egypt, they walked through the wilderness as far as the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Please let me pass through your land. But the king of Edom would not heed, and in a like manner they sent to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained in Kadesh, and they went along through the wilderness and bypassed the land of Edom and the land of Moab, came to the east side of the land of Moab, and encamped on the other side of Anon. But they did not enter the border of Moab, for the Aron was on the border of Moab. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, Please let us pass through your land into our place. But Sihon, do not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all the people together and camped on Jahaz and fought against Israel. And the Lord of God of the Israel delivered Sihon and all the people in the land of Israel, and they defeated them. Thus Israel gained possession of the land of the Amorites who inhabited the country. They took possession of all the territory of the Amorites and Aron and Jabbok, and from the wilderness of the Jordan. And now the Lord of Israel has disposed the Amorites from before his people of Israel, should you took possession of. Will you not possesses whatever Chemosh your God gives you to possess? For whoever the Lord of God walks possessions of before us, we will possess. And now are you any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever strive against Israel? Did he ever fight against them? But Israel dwelt in Heshbon and its villages, in Aror and in the villages, and in all the cities along the banks of the Aron for 300 years. Why did you not recover them within that time? Therefore I have not sinned against you, but you wrong me by fighting against me. May the Lord the judge render judgment this day between the children of Israel and the people of Ammon. However, the king of the people of Ammon did not heed the words of Jephthah that Jephthah sent him. So at the beginning of this is the account of Jephthah, of course, and how he came to be a judge over the people of Israel. But here in the beginning of the chapter, we see that he was a mighty warrior, and that he was the son of Gilead, and his mother was a prostitute. So he was a half son to the other men that his father bore. And just so that you, just a little bit of his pedigree, if you will, or his heritage is, Jephthah was the son of Gilead, who was the son of Manasseh, and that should ring a bell. We had the half tribe of Manasseh, who was the son of Joseph, and Joseph was who dwelt in the. He was the son of Jacob, and he dwelt in the land of Israel for many years. He was the second command. If we recover, he's also the account of the coat of many colors, where his brothers schemed against him. So that's his lineage, if you will. He was cast out by his brothers at a young age. We see that in verses 2 and 3, as well as in verse 7. There in verse 3 it says, gives an indication to the spiritual prowess, particularly in injunctions commanding one of love. This should give us a indication to the spirituality of Israel at the time, because we can look to Leviticus 19:33 and 34, where we are that they were to love their neighbor just as much as themselves, but yet when it came to their half brother, a kinsman, they would have nothing to do with him. That they cast him out, and they did not want to share any of their inheritance with him. So again, this should give us a good indication of the level of spirituality that was in Israel at the time. Like I said, this was clearly condemned to even to do this to a visitor to the nation, let alone a fellow kinsman. So from there he fled to the land of Tob, and he grew up there. I can only find this in the New King James Version, but it says that he was a raider there in verse 3. In my Bible it says, then Jephthah fled from his brothers and dwelt in the land of Tob, and the worthless men banded together with Jephthah and went out raiding with him. The other translations just say that the men went out with him. I would take from verse 3 that this is where Jephthah learned to be a great commander, if you will, or a commander among men, a great warlord, if you will, and that's why that they went to find him, is because they probably heard of how his success of his raids or whatnot. It might be. Some commentaries also point out that he grew up as a pagan. Because he was not in among the children of Israel, that he was in this foreign land. So he would have grown up knowing the worship of false gods. And the people of Ammon, we find in verse 4 that the people of Ammon begin to make war with Israel because they feel that Israel took their land at one time, but as we read there, that wasn't the case, and he made that plea to try to get them to realize that you're going to war for us for really no reason, or for a false reason. But we see there in verses 6 through 11 that the elders, which I assume the elders of Gilead would have been his half-brothers, because they were the sons of the other mother, if you will, they come seeking Jephthah and ask him to command their people. So I would assume by people what they mean is, not only the inhabitants, but mainly the men of war, the able-bodied men that would be going to war against Ammon. And it might be, he's also called out in the Hebrews in chapter 11, verse 32, which I thought was interesting. Of all the patriarchs down through the ages, when it comes to the account of the faithful patriarchs, there in verse 32 it says, and what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell that Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, so of David and Samuel the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edges of the swords, out of the weakness of the strong, became vigilant in battle, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. And so he's listed among the patriarchs of those that were deemed as faithful. So I thought that was interesting, that he was, of all the men down through the New Testament times, that he was one that was mentioned over there in the book of Hebrews in chapter 11. So now that we have an idea of who Jephthah was, that he was basically an orphan who was kicked out of his father's home because he was the son of a prostitute, not that of his father's wife, and he was sent to a foreign land, and he grew up there. He became a mighty man of valor, the New King James says, or a mighty man of war, if you will. Now let's look at the account of what most call, or what my pericope calls, is Jephthah's tragic vow, or some would call this a rash vow, that he made this vow out of rashness, if you will. So beginning there in verse 29, it says, Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed to Gilead and Manasseh, and passed through the Mizpah of Gilead, and to Mizpah of Gilead he advanced towards the people of Ammon. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, If you will indeed deliver, if you will give the, I jumped here too soon. Apologize. If you will indeed deliver the people of Ammon into my hands, then it will be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return to peace from the people of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. So Jephthah advanced towards the people of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. And he defeated them from Arion, and from as far as Minnith, the 20 cities, and from Abel Keramim with a great slaughter. Thus the people of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. So here in verses 30 and 31, we see this vow that he makes, as far as what's revealed in the scriptures, this is the only time that we see him speaking directly to God. And he makes this vow, and then he asks that if the Lord would deliver the Ammonites into his hand, that whatever comes out from the doors of his house when he comes back from this siege, if you will, or from this war, that he will make that a burnt offering and offered up unto the Lord. So that's his vow, or that what is known as his tragic vow, or his rash vow. Now let's look at Jephthah's daughter. And of course, this is where the controversy comes into play, is because I think we probably, as most of us that grew up in the church, we read this as stories of children. As Jephthah comes back from this, the first thing that comes out of the doors of the house is his daughter. And the next account we know is that he tears his clothes, and he saw her, that his daughter's the first one that he sees, and then it says that then he tells her of this vow that he made, and then she says, well, because you have made this vow, of course I'm paraphrasing here, but because you have made this vow, you shall, and unto the Lord, so it shall be. And then we see that she goes up into the mountains for 2 months, and that she sorrows, and then that's for the most just about all that we know of that account. And then we see that from then on that every year for 4 days that the children of Israel lament over Jephthah's daughter. And so the idea is, some tend to believe that, and we'll make this case, that his daughter was sacrificed, that she was put upon the altar, and that she was smitten, or that she was offered up as a literal burnt offering. Then the other view is that she wasn't put up as a burnt offering, that she was that the laws of the vows allow for her to go into service to the priest, or that she became part of the priesthood, if you will. Not that she was a priest, but she would have been given over to service of the Lord, and she would have remained a virgin for the rest of her life, and that she would have somehow rendered service unto the priesthood there. So let's look at these two different accounts, and like I say, we'll probably only get through this first one. So this first one will be for the case for the sacrificing of his daughter. And let's begin by looking at the expression offered as a burnt offering. And of course, this is the Hebrew there. If anybody knows Hebrew, I don't know Hebrew, but I just copy paste it in there. Always refers to an actual burnt offering. And just to prove this point, I'll go over, and you might have to open up those handouts that I handed to you. This is a Greek lexicon. But over here, here's a whole list of verbs here, anywhere from Genesis 20 all the way through Genesis and whatnot, that this Hebrew word always means a burnt offering sacrifice. In other words, and this lexicon says that it's a killing act. And then if we come over here, a killing act of a sacrifice, and this word would have actually meant a whole burnt offering. So it's a little bit different from what we would think of as a normal burnt offering, because a normal burnt offering could offer up the innards. Those were always set aside for God. But then a portion of the sacrifice as well, not necessarily the entire beast. But when it was a whole burnt offering, everything but the skin of the animal was put upon the altar and offered up unto God. So this idea here in this is that it's a whole burnt offering is what he's offering up as in his vow. When he says that whatever comes forth from the doors of my home that I first see, I will make a whole burnt offering unto you. And so, like I say, this idea then again is clearly this word for there, that the idea of burnt offering is a killing act, that which is a sacrifice and is a whole burnt offering, meaning that the entire carcass would be offered up unto the Lord. Whoops. I gotta hit my back button. Jephthah vowed that he would make this sacrifice. And we see that in verse 31 of chapter 11. And then in verse, and then those that are that hold this view, or hold this interpretation. In verse 39 it says, "And it was so at the end of 2 months, and she returned to her father, that she returned to." I'm sorry, I'm reading twice. That she returned to her father, and he carried out his vow with her which he had vowed. She knew no man, and it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went 4 days each year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. And so that's in verse 39. That's where people, that some take this view that she was offered up as a whole burnt offering, that she was laid upon the altar, and then she would have been smitten and then consumed into fire and offered up as a sweet smelling aroma unto God. So, and then they'll point out that, remember in verse 3 that we pointed out that he grew up in a pagan society. And actually in verse 24, he recognizes their God as a God, if you will. Look there in Judges chapter 11, verse 24. And when he says, "Will you not pass over Chemosh, your God gives you to possess?" So there he recognizes their God as being a God. So he knew who their God was. So they make the argument is that because he grew up as a pagan, that he knew, and if we go over to 2 Kings verses 26 and 27, when it's talking about Chemosh, over there in 2 Kings chapter 3, it says, "When the king of Moab saw that the battle was going against him, he took with him 700 swordsmen to break through, opposite of the king of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his oldest son, who was to reign in his place, and offered him for a burnt offering on the wall, and there came great wrath against Israel. They withdrew from him and returned to their land." So here over in 2 Kings chapter 3, we see that a king offers up his son as a burnt offering to Chemosh. So in other words, this pagan society that Jephthah grew up in recognized human sacrifice or children's sacrifices at that time. So the belief is that when he made this vow, he was thinking along the lines of a pagan, and that he had clearly pictured in his mind that he would offer up his own child in order to succeed, because that was the custom there in that society. Then they'll also make the plea that there are no examples for perpetual virginity. In other words, when we get into the second part, we're going to look at the laws covering the vows. Whenever you made a vow, you could redeem that thing that you vowed. In other words, say I make a vow before the Lord that if you get me through this battle, Lord, and deliver me back safe from home, I will sell a portion of my land and give it unto you. That would be a vow. And then after the battle, you come back and you say, "Well, I'm not sure if I want to do it." The law allowed for you to be able to redeem. In other words, you could pay a portion of gold or silver for that item and give that unto the priesthood. And so And then there's other things, because you could vow children, you could vow people in your household, you could vow just about everything you could make a vow unto the Lord. But those who take the position that he literally sacrificed his daughter, there's no evidence that one ever vowed their children to perpetual virginity or chastity, if you will, for the remainder of their lives. There's no example of that found in the New Testament. So we're about 30 minutes into this, so we'll curtail here, and then we'll come back tonight, and we'll look at the case for his daughter not being sacrificed. We'll look at the other side of this argument, and then we'll see what we can determine from there. Now, as when we always gather together, we want to set aside a portion of time, and we call it the invitation. This is an opportunity that if you're not a child of God, just as the song that we're about to sing, you must be born again. If you want to make yourself right, if you want to become a child of God, there's no better time than now to come forward, and then you can confess him as being the Christ, and we can lower you down in that water grave of baptism. You can come up a new creature, as Paul would put it, and begin a life anew. Or perhaps there's something going. Maybe you're already a Christian. There's something going on in your life, and that you would like to call upon the congregation to pray on your behalf. Whatever the case may be, we're here and ready to minister to you. So just let your wishes be known as we stand and sing the song that's been chosen.